Welcome back to Fenralian Gamer. Today we're diving into a topic that's been making some serious waves in the gaming world, the future of Black Myth Wukong. A lot of people think the story has already ended, but I don't believe that for a second. Game Science announced their new project, Black Myth Zhong Kui, sure. But everything I've seen, heard, and analyzed points to one simple truth. The Wukong DLC is absolutely happening. And yes, I'm completely sure about that. But before we start, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn on notifications. Let's get started. When the game dropped in 2024, it made a huge impact, but it was also pretty obvious that the story wasn't fully complete. The legendary battles, the mythological atmosphere, and the character development were fantastic. But something was missing. Because Game Science originally said the game would have 13 chapters, yet the release version only included 6. That means more than half the story was missing. So when Black Myth Zhong Kui was announced, everyone asked the same thing. So does that mean Wukong's story is over? I don't think so. In fact, I believe this new game proves that the universe is expanding, and that missing piece will be completed with Wukong's final journey. Now let's talk about that announcement. Black Myth. Zhong Kui looks incredibly ambitious, but the development is still in its early stages. The studio has already made it clear that this project will have a long production cycle, and in my opinion, we won't see it any earlier than 2029. And that's exactly why I think the gap between now and then will be filled by a Wukong DLC. Because no studio would ever leave millions of fans hanging with an unfinished story. What excites me the most is all the rumors, and honestly my own thoughts as well, point to a DLC announcement around Christmas 2025. Especially the Game Awards 2025, that event would be the perfect stage for it. Big audience, emotional impact, and the game's 1-year anniversary. The timing lines up perfectly. Even if it doesn't happen in December, I truly believe we'll see it no later than early 2026. And in my opinion, this DLC won't just be a continuation, it'll be the true conclusion. Characters like Nezha, Buddha, and the Jade Emperor all had unfinished stories. Their return will complete Wukong's transformation, both physically and spiritually. In this DLC, we'll see something far deeper than a regular boss fight. It'll be about destiny, inner struggle, and the completion of a legend. At its core, Black Myth. Wukong has always been more than just a combat game. It's a spiritual journey. The main game was already built on mythological foundations, but the DLC will take that to a much deeper level. Because characters like Buddha and Nezha aren't just enemies or allies, they represent different parts of Wukong's inner self. At this point, the story will shift from a traditional hero's journey into a confrontation with fate itself. I also believe the new DLC boss battles will reflect this theme perfectly. Especially the fights against Wukong and Nezha, they'll be not only visually stunning but emotionally powerful as well. Game Science has always prioritized cinematic storytelling. So every boss fight won't just be a gameplay challenge, but also an important story moment. This time, players won't just be fighting enemies, they'll be battling Wukong's own past. The environmental design is also expected to change dramatically. New regions are rumored to be inspired by Tibet, China, and mythological underworld motifs. Floating palaces in the sky, deep valleys filled with lava, and mystical temples. This atmosphere won't just give players battles, it'll make exploration feel meaningful. Game Science already excels at environmental storytelling, but this DLC could push that skill to a whole new level. On the technical side, major upgrades are also expected. The game already received DLSS 4 and Intel XeSS 2 support with its April 2025 update. That means sharper textures, more dynamic lighting, and near-cinematic visuals in the new DLC areas. It's also said that performance during boss fights and loading times will improve significantly. The developers are also focusing on console optimization, especially for the Xbox version. When you put all this together, the Black Myth Wukong DLC won't just be new content. It'll feel like a rebirth. Players will experience something completely new, both technically and narratively. Game Science's goal is clear, to complete Wukong's story and turn this world into a lasting myth. In my opinion, this isn't just an update, it's the final act of a new legend. One of the DLC's strongest aspects will definitely be Wukong's spiritual transformation. The Buddha won't just appear as a character, he'll symbolize Wukong's inner struggle. That encounter won't feel like a typical boss battle, but more like a mental test. This chapter will require not only reflexes, but also patience and awareness. The contrast between Buddha's teachings and Wukong's rage could easily become the most philosophical part of the entire story. The Jade Emperor, on the other hand, will represent a completely different theme: power and destiny. Wukong's desire to defy his own nature will reach its peak during this confrontation. It's not just a throne fight, it's a battle over who controls fate itself. At this point, players might even decide which path Wukong takes: submission or rebellion. So, this DLC will make player choices truly matter in the story. There will also be brand new gameplay systems, new spiritual abilities, alternative combat styles, and temporary transformations will let players shape Wukong entirely around their own playstyle. Especially after the fight with Nezha, the new powers you gain will completely change both visuals and combat tactics. This isn't just a progression mechanic, it's a reflection of Wukong's personal growth. Another key part of the DLC will be environmental interaction. Players won't just fight enemies, they'll solve puzzles, use the environment strategically, and uncover hidden areas and alternative paths. This will make the game feel more like a mythological adventure. You won't just feel like a warrior anymore, but also a traveler, a student, and a seeker of truth. When all these new features come together, Black Myth Wukong won't just be an action game anymore, it'll evolve into a philosophical journey. A story that pushes both Wukong's physical and spiritual limits, making players question what heroism truly means. That's why I believe this DLC won't just be an expansion, it'll be the ultimate peak of the series. On the community side, expectations are sky high. Everyone on social media and forums is saying the same thing. Wukong's story isn't over. Players don't just want more content, they want emotional closure. Game science has stayed silent so far, but to me, that silence feels like the calm before the storm. With this much fan demand, it's impossible for them to stay quiet forever. The signs of a DLC announcement are getting stronger every day. Personally, I think game science will reveal this DLC during the holiday season. December is always the hottest month for gaming announcements. Players are home, studios are active, and social media is on fire. And of course, there's the Game Awards stage. I believe they'll drop a short but powerful teaser there. Nezha's voice, Wukong's shadow, and just one line: the journey continues. That single moment would shake the whole world. Game science has always loved subtle but meaningful reveals. Even the main game's first trailer wasn't shown at a big expo. They just dropped it quietly, their own way, and it went viral. So they might use the same strategy for the DLC. The final scene of the main game, especially when Wukong looks up at the sky, to me, that was a clear signal of continuation. So when that teaser finally drops, everyone will have the same thought. The moment we've been waiting for is here. Of course, there's also the new project Black Myth, Zhong Kui. Some players might see its existence as a sign that Wukong's story is over. But I think it's the opposite. Zhong Kui will be the next step in this universe. After Wukong's story concludes with the DLC, this new character will expand the mythological world even further. Game science isn't just making a game anymore, they're building an entire mythos. And for this new universe to be born, Wukong's story has to be completed, because Zhong Kui's journey will be directly connected to the consequences of Wukong's actions. The studio hasn't said this outright, but the thematic connection is clear. That's why the Wukong DLC isn't just an add-on, it's a bridge that will lead into the next era of this universe. So, to those who say, Wukong's story is over, I disagree. The story isn't ending, it's evolving. Finally, it's almost certain that this DLC will be paid, and that's perfectly fair given its scale. We're talking about 6-7 new chapters, new regions, characters, music, and gameplay systems. That's no small task. But I'm sure players know it'll be worth it. Game Science is one of the few studios that truly guarantees quality. This DLC will be worth every penny, both in content and emotional weight. And I genuinely believe this DLC will bring Wukong's story to a close, but its impact will last for years. The final fight with Nezha, the confrontation with the Jade Emperor, Buddha's silent trial, all of it will define Wukong's destiny. This won't just be a finale, it'll be a fusion of nature, power, and spirit. When that moment comes, players won't just finish a game, they'll experience a legend. Wukong's story won't end here, because some legends never end, they just change form. Game science has built such a solid foundation that every future game and every new character will be part of this myth. Wukong has become a legend, and we are the witnesses of that legend. If you believe in this world as much as I do, drop a comment below. Who do you think Wukong's final battle will be against Nezha, the Jade Emperor, or his own destiny? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because this story isn't over yet. This is just the beginning. See you in the next one.